this morning here on The First Up, I decided to bring in different voices. So we try and understand what's unfolding in the USA. And there's a reason. This is not just about Joe Biden now backing out. It's now about Donald Trump versus who? Is it going to be Kamala Harris? Joining me now in this telecast, Sri Thanedar. He's a US congressman. He's joining me from Washington, D.C. Rohit Sharma, a senior journalist. Also, Dr. Sampath Shivangi is joining me, delegate at the Republican National Committee. This is from Mississippi. So I thank all three of you for joining us. I want to take the first question from Sri Thanedar. How should one make of this specific announcement from Joe Biden? Not only has he decided to step back, he's endorsing Kamala Harris. My question is America ready for a woman, immigrant face, and then importantly, a non-white, so to say?
Well, first of all, Joe Biden has been a great president. He has done more in 4 years than many other presidents have done. He's created 15 million jobs, brought in the infrastructure across America. But when time came and many Democratic leaders asked him to step down, he did not think selfishly, but he thought he put the country ahead of his own interest. And he stepped down. That's very big of him, and I thank him for all his service. Now, talking about Kamala Harris, she is the number two. She has the right and first chance to accept the top of the ticket, and she has accepted it. Joe Biden has endorsed her, and 125 colleagues of mine, including myself, we have all endorsed Kamala Harris to be our next president. Same way our senators have endorsed her, 25 senators.
Very interesting. I request you to please stay on with me, Sri Thanedar, because Rohit Sharma is also joining me. Rohit, you tell me, because it's as much about, of course, that this is domestic politics for the USA, but these are also about global alliances, how this will turn out for India, for example, whether it's Trump or if Kamala Harris is going to be the official nominee. But how is this being seen on the ground? What should one make of it? Because Joe Biden stepping aside was a speculation, was a rumor, and it's finally happened.
Right, and you're so right, Pooja, in that, I spoke to a campaign official last night, as a matter of fact, and I asked him, I said, we were hearing rumors about something that's going to happen on Sunday, and he strongly said that that's not going to happen. The president has plans to go and campaign in the next week. He was going to travel to Texas and do, campaign rallies in Texas. So it came as a surprise. What I do know for a fact is that President Biden trusted his two advisors for the longest time, Mike Donnelly and Steve Ricchetti. He called them in, he spoke to them, they presented him with some data, and that data was damning enough for Joe Biden to get convinced that he should step aside. And this is the same data that Nancy Pelosi and others have been pushing on and have been trying to make sure that Joe Biden can get access to this. So once he was confronted with that and he was told that, he's not only going to lose the election, but his party is also going to probably go down in both the houses, I think Joe Biden made that decision. I was also told that he spoke to Kamala Harris a few times before he made that decision. So I think all in all, I think the decision has changed in the last 24 to 36 hours by Joe Biden. Before he got COVID, he was gung-ho, he wanted to go ahead. I think something changed. And what we've been told is that, two of his trusted advisors essentially said that this is the time for Joe Biden to go.
Very interesting. Also, Dr. Sampath Shivangi is joining me. And because you've been a delegate at the Republican National Committee, you tell me, do you think that, did it just become easier for Donald Trump that Joe Biden is out and possibly if it's Kamala Harris, or do you think it could still be a close game? Because the manner in which Trump is using words like crooked, he was never fit to serve, are very strong retorts.
No, thank you for inviting me. It's especially Ms. Pooja, it's great to see you. I watch you all the time.
Thank you, Dr. Sampath.
Yeah, I'm honored that you invited me. I'm a Republican for the last 45 years out of 48 years of my life in the U.S. Sri Thanedar and I come from same town. We know each other very well. But wow. Besides that, I'm a Republican, he is a Democrat. We are good friends, nothing to do with the political system. I know, I've been working under Biden administration now also. I was appointed by President George W. Bush and next President Trump. Biden did not fire me. He continued to be the chair of National Board of Mental Health. I'm thankful to him. But besides, the politics is different than what his administration is different. See, I did not agree with President Biden. The Afghan withdrawal fiasco is really, really hurt internationally U.S. relations with the rest of the world. I mean, America is such a strong nation. To accept Afghanistan ahead of them was a disgrace to U.S., the one feeling. Second thing is immigration. Millions of people from across the border, Mexico and other areas, pouring into U.S. We came as illegal immigrants when I came. We don't like illegal immigrants. We don't know who they are coming. Are they have a criminal history?
Yes.
Are they mentally ill? Are they came to rob? And since he opened the borders, Kamala Harris as well as him, there are millions of Mexican doors were open, and they're all in the U.S. The drug abuse has gone up. The criminal activities have gone up. Rapes have gone up. It's not very good to the rest of the world, I feel.
There's definitely been a lot of concerns when it comes to the US and specifically for narcotic substances. I want to take that to Sri Thanedar because many are praising Joe Biden for the kind of contribution that he has made to political and public life all these years. It's not just about as a president, but the fact that he's been associated for a very long time with public life. How do you see this proceeding here on? Because Donald Trump will want to jump on this and say, I'm the only one who can save America, make America great again, MAGA, the slogan that's all about. How do you think Democrats will now go ahead and say, we are still in the game and Donald Trump shouldn't take us for granted?
Well, look, Kamala Harris will make it clear. She's a prosecutor. She's a very strong woman. She's a prosecutor. She will prosecute this case that Donald Trump is unfit to be the next president. He is a convicted criminal. He has 34 counts of felony against him. So he should not be the president of the United States. He should not have the nuclear code in his hand, somebody that has created and, he has committed sexual atrocities. He has done financial misappropriations. He took away Secret Service papers. He's unfit to be the president, and Kamala Harris will make that case. Democrats in Chicago, in just about 4 weeks, we have a convention in Chicago, where we will nominate Kamala Harris.
Okay.
There'll be a lot of excitement, and she will prosecute this case against against Donald Trump, and she will be successful.
Very interesting days ahead, and if she goes on to become the president, that's going to be huge as well. I request our guests to please stay on with me because US President Joe Biden shocked the world, clearly. Even though many wanted him, asked him to drop from the race, he had refused so far. But he's now out of the president's race. But does that mean that Kamala Harris is going to become Democratic Party's new nominee? Let's watch this report to understand, because now that Biden is out, Trump versus who for the USA?
U.S. President Joe Biden has ended his faltering re-election bid. In a post on X, the 81-year-old said he would stay in his role as president and commander-in-chief until his term ends in January. "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president," he said, while adding, "I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down." He also endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to replace him as the party's candidate.
They just paid 24%, or 25%, either one of those numbers.
There's been a wave of public and private pressure from Democratic lawmakers and party officials for him to quit after his shockingly poor performance in a televised debate last month against Donald Trump, his Republican rival.
If we finally beat Medicare.
It took the spotlight away from Trump's false statements and put it squarely on Biden's fitness for another 4-year term. All his donors began to revolt.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Other gaffes at a NATO summit did not help either. He invoked Russian President Vladimir Putin's name when he meant Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and called Harris Vice President Trump.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president. When you get knocked down, you get back up.
Biden initially resisted pressure to step aside and sat down for rare television interviews. But polls showed Trump's lead in key battleground states widening, and Democrats began to fear a wipeout in the House and Senate. Just days ago, Biden was diagnosed with COVID-19.
Trump wanted to run against Biden.
Darrell West with the Brookings Institution says Biden's move creates problems for the Republicans, at least in the short term.
They're just going to have to recast the whole thrust of their campaign, which was saying Joe Biden was too old, he couldn't do the job, his family was corrupt. All that disappears now.
For his part, Trump told CNN on Sunday that he believed Harris would be easier to defeat in the November 5th election. It's unclear whether other senior Democrats might challenge Harris for the nomination or if the party would choose to open the field for nominations. Biden is the first sitting president to give up his party's nomination for re-election since President Lyndon Johnson in 1968. And it leaves his replacement with less than 4 months to wage a campaign.
I go back to our guests and expert panel right now, and I take this to Dr. Sampath here, because as someone with Indian origins, do you think it's conflicting at all that you will have to choose between possibly Kamala Harris, who has an immigrant background, and then there is Donald Trump? Now, Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have faced a very strong friendship and bond. In many ways, the India-US relationship had become much better when both of them were in the government. Do you think there's any sort of confusion that an Indian origin individual, an American citizen today, will face on that front?
Thank you so much. But see, I have written so many articles about Kamala Harris. We really love she being Indian heritage.
Yes.
But she would not accept that as her qualification. See, by saying she is Indian origin, she's going to get 1% of American votes. If she says she's a black American, she is going to get 20% of the American votes. Who would she choose? Naturally, with her interest, she will say she is a black American. That is my fundamentally, day one, they were asking me hundreds of newspapers. I already said she's a great friend of India. Why she would not go to India in 4 years of her term? President Trump went to India when in his third year of his term. What prevents Kamala Harris to go to India, visit? Modi ji invited her. I was there when the invitation took place. But she never stepped into India. She's a great person, great personality, wonderful lady. But I don't know how good she is to India, but she wants to stay away from India. That is my problem.
Very interesting, the perspective that you're bringing, because the American citizen is also, they're looking, they're watching it carefully, and it's not just about a certain face, gender, or background, because eventually they have to choose their government as well. Dr. Sampath, stay on with me. Rohit, I take that question to you. Eventually, even though the elections doesn't concern us directly sitting here in India, but there is a repercussion of whoever becomes the leader, how their association will be for now with Prime Minister Modi and with India in general. Do you think that will also play out? It will be very crucial, because eventually it's not just USA, it's a global superpowers, President.
Well, look, I think as far as India is concerned, we've seen both during Trump administration and also during Biden administration that, the relationship has gone from strength to strength.
Correct.
Obviously, we have more footage where we can see, President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, shaking hands and hugging in India, over here in the US. And, there is that camaraderie, which is undeniable. But I think at the end of the day, if Vice President Harris becomes the President of the United States, I think she would probably, be on the same boat where, I think everybody believes in America that the relationship with India is the most important and consequential one. And I think we'll probably see her more, into that warmth role that we really haven't seen her because she was the vice president. So again, I think the India-US relationship, I don't think would get impacted by whoever is in power. But yes, it does help you when you already know somebody who's done that before, you know how they operate. I think those things, there won't be any initial jitters working with Donald Trump. But even with, I think, Vice President Harris, if she were to win the election, I think things will definitely settle down. And I think I only see India-US relationship going from strength to strength.
Well, the focus here now comes on Kamala Harris. While Joe Biden has praised her as a selfless, patriotic one, stating she intends to earn and win her party's nomination, that's what she has also said. She's decided to thank Joe Biden because, after all, remember, Biden gave her the opportunity to become the second in command as a vice president. That was historic in itself. She's now going to be, according to Biden, being endorsed as a Democrat nominee, but also heaping praises on each other. While this mutual admiration club exists, how will the American voter take a look at this? That is also going to be the focus here when we talk of Kamala Harris. So I want to take that point to Sri Thanedar here, because the focus will be for Kamala Harris. But do you see it easy for her? And why I ask that is because she has experience of governance, but we've seen how Donald Trump has returned. Specifically after surviving that assassination attempt, he's been all guns blazing. He's clearly catched on to the whole incident that has happened as if it's some surreal opportunity that he has got. And then there is Kamala Harris. Do you think that even in the next presidential debate that we'll have, is it going to be an interesting one when we have Kamala Harris possibly versus Donald Trump?
Yeah, it is a very difficult election. It's going to be a very, very close election. The state that I represent, Michigan,
Yes.
Michigan is going to be a critical battleground state. Pennsylvania is going to be a very critical battleground state, and Wisconsin would be a very critical battleground state. And at this stage, that remains the best opportunity for a Democrat to win presidential election. So this is going to be a very, very closely fought election, and Kamala Harris has to make her points and show the people who Donald Trump really is, and how he would come in and help the rich and the wealthy, and how he will give tax breaks to the rich. You know, she will come back and show that how Democrats have united NATO, worldwide, how we have helped fight against Putin. Now, Trump is very, very friendly with Putin. So there is a lot of things that have to be clarified, but this is going to be a tough election, but we will win in the end.
Very interesting. And, the focus, because, is now on Kamala Harris. And while I may be bringing in the immigrant factor more, the fact is it's a woman factor more. US has never had a woman president. There have been earlier names like Hillary Clinton that had come forth, but nobody could really reach that position. American voters have elected only one black president, so to say, and that's been Barack Obama. So there's going to be a lot of focus. Are Americans prepared for a woman president, an immigrant origin president, and importantly, after Joe Biden, against Trump? Is Kamala Harris the one they'll choose? Here's a special report on that. We'll go across to our guests after that.
The Democratic Party will be taking a historic gamble if it turns to Vice President Kamala Harris to become its presidential candidate.
Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America?
It would be betting that a black woman can overcome racism, sexism, and her own missteps as a politician to defeat Republican Donald Trump. The focus turns to Harris after President Joe Biden, in a historic move, ended his re-election campaign on Sunday as fellow Democrats lost faith in his mental acuity and ability to beat Trump. Minutes later, he endorsed Harris. All this leaves the presidential race in uncharted territory. In more than 2 centuries of democracy, American voters have elected only one black president and never a woman, a record that makes even some black voters wonder if Harris can crash through the hardest ceiling in U.S. politics.
Well, this here is the one. The most existential, consequential, and important election of our lifetime.
Harris would face other big challenges. If promoted to the top of the ticket, she would have barely 3 months to campaign and unite the party and donors behind her. Yet many Democrats are excited about her chances. At 59, Harris is 2 decades younger than Trump and a leader in the party on abortion rights, an issue which resonates with younger voters and Democrats' progressive base. Proponents argue she would energize those voters, consolidate black support, and bring sharp debating skills to prosecute the political case against the former president. In a hypothetical head-to-head matchup, Harris and Trump were tied with 44% support each in a July 15th and 16th Reuters Ipsos poll conducted immediately after the assassination attempt against Trump. Trump led Biden 43% to 41% in that same poll, though the 2 percentage point difference was within the poll's 3 percentage point margin of error. And Harris's approval ratings, while low, are a tick higher than Biden's. But despite earning praise in the last few weeks for her strong defense of Biden, some Democrats remain concerned about Harris's shaky first 2 years in office, short-lived campaign for the 2020 Democratic nomination, and, perhaps most of all, the weight of a long history of racial and gender discrimination in the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
All right, so let's take closing comments now. First to Sridhar, because what do you see, how do you see it going here on? When do we expect an official announcement? Should we consider it's going to be Kamala Harris? And importantly, when is that presidential debate coming in? Do you think Democrats now are prepared against Trump for now the next presidential debate?
Our Democratic Party's Rules Committee will make the rules very early in August. There will be a roll call, and we expect Kamala Harris to be nominated. And it's going to energize the party. It's going to excite the party. For the first time, we're creating history of Black woman and Indian American woman. So we will be all going in excited coming out of convention. I think the convention is going to give her a polling bump, and we are going to cruise to victory.
And perhaps she has some experience, so that could come to her rescue as well. Sridhar, just a quick point here. Why do you think that the Americans could vote for the Democrats again? Because Trump's looking strong. He's saying everything's wrong with America. So why do you think possibly Kamala Harris could be the pick for Americans?
Well, look, Trump is for the rich people. He is not for the common man. He is erratic. He has spoiled relationship with world leaders across the world. His nationalist policies aren't working. He's going to put a tariff that's going to raise, every American would end up paying $2,500 more for goods because of Trump's tariff. Trump is going to be bad for economy. And Joe Biden and Harris have done a great job on economy. Harris is going to continue that path, and it's going to be good for the people.
All right, so let's take that to Dr. Sampath then, because I'm sure he's a very different extreme view on that in contrast. Dr. Sampath, you tell me, because Donald Trump clearly looks like that he's going to emerge stronger in the sense that he's saying only he can bring out as a remedy. But how close do you think this election is going to be, and why would the Americans, including Indian immigrants, would possibly choose a Donald Trump?
First of all, I want to clarify, Kamala Harris never claims she is Indian American. She is African American. That's what she claims. So I think we are taking a wrong notion that she's Indian American. I question her a million times. Are you Indian American? She would not answer that question. So I think if she is good, anybody can vote for her. I'm not saying that she's a bad person. But Trump was successful in 4 years. Inflation was 30% down in America. Biden presidency has inflation went up by 30%. The gas used to get less than $2 a gallon. Now it's $4 a gallon. How a poor man, a middle-class man can survive? It's a tough situation. There was not a single war in 4 years of Trump's administration. How many wars we have to go through? Ukraine is the biggest issue we have. We have Israel, Hamas.
I think that's what I think is going to be the big focus here, that he said, I will stop the wars. Had I been there, the wars wouldn't have even happened. So that's going to be one big focus. One final point from Rohit right now. Rohit, as a journalist, as someone who's been in the US watching it unfold, what do you see it becoming in the next few months, as it's going to be a new face against Trump?
Absolutely. I was speaking to somebody on the Trump campaign. I think, they were partially prepared for it. And I think, we'll probably see they want to define Kamala Harris. And what I mean by that is, they've given so many nicknames to Joe Biden. I think that's the strategy we'll see. And I think a lot remains to be seen at how do Democrats do at DNC with this new candidate. Preparations were all in for Joe Biden as the nominee and the president. Now they'll have to define this election by putting up this new candidate who's going to fight elections with Trump in November. So interesting times ahead, Pooja.
Interesting. And I have to say, it's not about Usha Chilukuri or Kamala Harris or Trump or Biden. It's as much to gentlemen like you who've moved beyond oceans and boundaries and have made such a mark about yourself, representing the Indian community as well in the USA. Thank you very much for joining me, and all the very best. It's a reflection of what Indian community is doing, whether it's in the journalist community or political and public life. All the very best to you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.